Set 12 has changed leveling in ways that you wouldn't really think of because there were some changes, but it's really the charm mechanic that is taking over everything.
Charms.
So we are going to go over all the different leveling strategies, including standard leveling, which is what you're going to be doing most games, at least at the start, fast 8ing, which is great for 4 cost comps, fast 9ing, great for 5 costs, and then all the 1, 2, and 3 cost reroll leveling patterns. But first, I want to talk about the new mechanic a bit. So charms were introduced into TFT, and I think they're pretty fun. However, most charms do cost a decent amount of gold, and that changes how you are going to manage your economy in most games. For example, nowadays, level 9 is much harder to reach, whereas in previous sets, going fast 9 was no issue. Level 10 is also extremely rare now due to all these charms. So some charms do give money, and if you're really all in on going like level 9 or level 10, it's still possible. I'm not saying it cannot be done. But unless you're lucking out on all your charms and only getting economy ones and not getting any combat ones, it's going to be pretty difficult to do. So essentially, charms show up every 3 shops in the beginning of the game and then show up every 2 shops starting in stage 5. And after stage 5, the way player damage works is you get hit pretty hard later on in the game. So essentially, you want a combat charm almost every single turn in stage 5, which makes it kind of difficult to reach level 9 because one of these charms costs like 12 gold. Imagine just like losing 12 gold in a previous set. You would not be able to hit the level you want to hit. So as long as that is still the meta, level 10, don't even think about it. Level 9, okay, maybe if you get Scuttle Puddle plus you get Hedge Fund at the start of the game, and your grandfather leaves you a $2 million house upon his death, then yes, you could go level 9 in that case. However, for everyone else, only go level 9 if you hit everything on level 8 for some reason without rolling too much, and then you're like, hey, what else do I do with my money? Okay, I could go level 9 now. It does happen more often than I'm making it seem, but more things have to align compared to previous sets. Because it's not just stage 5 where you need all these combat charms. In like stage 3, I see a lot of people are rolling a bit more aggressively than they have in the past, and they happen on like random stages too. Most of the time people do it on either 3-1 or 3-2, but I've seen people do it on like 3-3, 3-5, or even 3-6 because they're trying to get a charm. Because sometimes you get a combat charm, which helps you win the fight, but also you get an econ charm. So sometimes it works the other way where getting a charm can actually give you more gold. It really just depends. But all in all, the teams are still going to be strong because sometimes when you buy something with your gold, it's like an item component, and sometimes those are really useful. But if you're spending gold on things that are not leveling, it's going to be hard to reach those higher levels. Another thing they changed in this set is going to be the bag sizes for the champions. They changed the amount of 1 cost in the pool from 22 units to 30 units, 2 costs, I think it was 22 to 25, and then 3 costs from 17 to 18. When there are more units in the pool, this means that it's easier to hit those units even if they are contested. So that means reroll is going to be much more popular than it was in the past, or at least it's easier to hit stuff, because sometimes, you know, when you're going for like a 2 cost reroll and then there just happens to be a 2 cost that's like very popular in the meta, not because of the reroll, but because it's used in other comps. In those cases, it's still going to be possible to hit a 3-star 2 cost in a reasonable game, whereas it was a bit more difficult before. But let's go on into how to do standard leveling, just a quick recap. And then we'll get into rerolling and then general leveling tips. So first off, in standard leveling, generally this is good for pivoting into different leveling patterns. For example, if you hit a bunch of 2 costs as you're doing standard leveling at the start of the game, you could decide to go into a 2 cost reroll. You could even decide to do a 3 cost reroll or like a fast 8, depending on how your game goes. But it leaves you pretty flexible to kind of do whatever you want. It's also good for playing vertical comps. Vertical comps are comps that go really deep into a trait. For example, if you want to play like 7 Eldritch or like 7 Mages, standard leveling is probably going to be one of the go-to leveling patterns. The reason why is because you have units to hit at every single cost. So like mages have a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 cost, and they even have multiple copies of units in some cost tiers, which essentially means you want to get units at every level, and standard leveling is a great way to kind of do that. By the way, if you're wondering about other comps to play, head on over to the meta snapshot at bunnymuffins.lol/meta, where we update a tier list of the best comps every single Friday. So generally, when you're doing standard leveling at stage 2-1, you need to decide whether you want to try to win streak or lose streak, or kind of just see what happens. If you want to win streak, oftentimes people level up at this point at stage 2-1. That way you could add an extra unit in. Sometimes you need to be careful though, because if you don't have upgraded 1 cost units, it can be a bit more tricky to hit them later on in stage 2, because again, as you level up, your shop odds change, which means that you get rarer units as you level up. However, in the beginning of the game, when you need all these 1-cost units, sometimes it's beneficial to actually not level to be a bit stronger later on. So I generally like leveling up if I have like very good items, if I already have units upgraded, or if I see that my opponents are pretty weak. If you want a lose streak, don't level up. You'll level up naturally a bit later. And then typically most people hit level 5 around stage 2-5 if they leveled up before. If not, you'll level up to level 5 on stage 3-1 or 2-7. 2-7 is a neutral round. Sometimes you need to level up to level 5 in order to kill it. Generally, you could kill these golems with 4 units if you have one of them upgraded or like a really good item or a bunch of synergies. Any of those generally do it, but try to have a combination. If not, you do need to level up. Then level 6 comes. If you're doing standard leveling, you're almost always reaching level 6 at stage 3-2, and this is where people roll a little bit. So in the past, people sometimes never rolled here at all, or they rolled really, really hard. I recommend rolling once or twice at this stage if you have a bunch of pairs, so that you can hit a charm. Charms are generally pretty good. I almost always buy a charm because the combat buff they give is great. If it's an econ one, it's like free money. So in most cases, I am buying some charms here. However, there are going to still be instances where you need to roll decently hard on 3-2, but that really only happens if you have no health at all and your team is like really weak, where rolling once or twice isn't quite going to cut it. Next up, we have level 7. You're generally going to reach level 7 at stage 3-5 or 4-1. In a high econ game, such as if you're playing on a portal, which gives a lot of money, such as Scuttle Puddle or Gold Subscription, you're going to reach level 7 on stage 3-5. In other more normal games, you're going to reach it at stage 4-1. Typically here, again, you could roll a little bit for the charm or to just complete 1 or 2 pairs, but here's a nice decision point to reach where you can decide whether you're going for a 3-cost reroll or a 4-cost carry instead. Stage 4 is a critical point in TFT because this is when like people consider the game actually starts in a lot of previous sets. So it is pretty important to be healthy at this stage. So rolling a bunch on stage 4-1 shouldn't be something that you're afraid to do unless you have a very specific strategy, such as doing a fast 8. Generally, people go for a fast 8 if they are relatively healthy. So if you're low health, on stage 4-1, you definitely want to roll down a bunch. If not, you could decide to do a fast 8 instead and level up to level 8 on like stage 4-2 or 4-5. But a bit more on that later. If you rolled a bit at level 7 on stage 4-1, you'll typically have a bunch of upgraded 2 and 3 cost units because the rolling odds at that level are very good for 2 and 3 cost units. If you're lucky, you have a 1-star copy of your 4 cost unit, which puts you in a really, really good spot. For example, if we're playing mages, perhaps you have Vex 2-star, Galio 2-star, and maybe even a 1-star Nami on your board. After that, you just want to econ back up and get to level 8. Generally, when I level up to level 7 or level 8, I like having around 30 gold left over after leveling. So whenever you have enough gold to reach that condition, level up to the next level, and then you can decide to roll a bit or wait a bit before rolling. Level 8 is usually reached around stage 4-5 or 5-1, and you usually want to roll a lot of gold at this level. Most people make the mistake of trying to go level 9 because they want key legendaries, but you typically only go level 9 once you upgraded all the 4 cost units on your board. The reason why is because level 9 is really expensive. It costs 76 gold to do, so imagine if you had like 76 to roll down with on level 8, you'll probably hit some pretty good stuff instead. You really only go level 9 if you're like really keen on getting certain legendaries, or if you need that extra unit slot to hit like a critical synergy. So for example, if you can put in a unit that gives you like 2 very good traits activated, then yeah, go level 9 and throw that unit in. But in most other cases, if your board's not already upgraded, it's best to roll at level 8. Level 10, I'm not even sure if we should talk about this because it's really not going to happen in too many games, especially as you get into higher and higher ratings. Because again, during stage 5, which is typically when you hit level 9, you need to be rolling for charms every single turn, because at that point in the game, you have around like 1 to 30 life in a lot of cases. Getting some sort of combat boost, such as charms that stun every enemy on the board for the first couple seconds, stuff that gives you stun immunity. Sometimes you could get a freaking dragon on your board. That's going to help a lot more than saving up for a couple more turns and then leveling up to add in a 1-star Camille. But that's pretty much what standard leveling is. We did introduce what fast 8ing is. We'll talk about that and fast 9ing. So fast 8ing, it normally happens when you do standard leveling, but you don't really roll much at the intervals we talked about. So this can happen if you were win streaking in the early game, if you get an econ augment in the early game, or if you just hit all your upgrades naturally. So a common beginner mistake I see is that they roll on the stages I tell them to roll on just because I said so, but they don't recognize why they're rolling. You roll generally when you have pairs, so if you already have your whole board upgraded, you really don't have that much of an incentive to roll. So there are some cases where you don't want to listen to a leveling guide because they are general rules. However, when you're doing a fast 8, you need as much money as possible to reach that as quickly as possible. Generally around stage 4-2 is when you want to hit it. And in order to do that, you pretty much have to spend no gold in the early parts of the game in stages 2 and 3. That way on stage 4-2, you have like 30 to 50 gold to roll down with, and you should be able to hit a pretty decent board to stabilize your stage 4. What does stabilizing your stage 4 do? Well, it sets you up for stage 5. At stage 5, you could decide, hey, can I level up to level 9? Or can I roll down again and hit like some crazy, disgusting board? You can also comfortably buy all the charms that you want during stage 5 without being too poor to do anything else. So generally for fast 8ing, people like to do this when they have like a lose streak start, but that's generally not recommended because you want a lot of HP to make this work. Again, the reason why is because during the late parts of stage 3 and the early parts of stage 4, you're going to take a lot of damage. So if you don't have the health pool to kind of back that up, you're going to be playing your team comp with like 1 life left, and then one unlucky RNG can literally cause you to go like 7th, and you don't want that. So only do fast 8 if you have like decent starts. Same thing for fast 9. So fast 9, only do this if you have like Scuttle Puddle or like Crab Rave with some sort of crazy econ at the start, maybe from an augment, or maybe you just hit every unit that you want in your shop and you're not even getting random shops, or maybe you just have like hand-picked units in your shop to the point where it's not even random anymore. Those are kind of the only times where you would try to go for a fast 9. So for fast 9ing, again, this is good for 5 cost comps. You'd play it very similarly to fast 8. However, instead of level 8 being the goal, level 9 is the goal. And you typically hit this around stage 4-5 or 5-1 or 5-2. At that point, you roll all your gold. Preferably, you have around like 30 to 50 gold again. Obviously, the more the better. And then you pray that the 1-star Zerath that you got ends up stabilizing your team. But that pretty much sums up standard leveling, fast 8ing, and fast 9ing in the quickest way possible. But next up we have are the rerolls. So 1 cost reroll. These are a lot better, especially with all the hero augments out there. So normally when you do 1 cost reroll without hero augments, you generally want to play a comp that has 1 damage dealer and 1 tank at the same cost. So this could be something like a fairy comp with Seraphine in the back line and Lilia in the front line. They're both fairies, they're both 1 cost, so it makes perfect sense to play them together, assuming that the comp is viable. In those games, you need to get 2 units to 3-star, and that's typically how people played reroll in the past. However, now since there are a lot of different hero augments for the 1 cost units, you play it a little differently. So for those comps, such as getting like the Lilia augment or the Poppy augment, you get 3 copies of your unit when you take the augment on stage 2-1. So it makes doing 1 cost reroll a lot easier. In those cases, you just follow the same old leveling pattern that we've been doing before. You do not press the level up button throughout the early parts of the game. On stage 3-1, when you're still level 4, you roll down to 30 gold. If you have 7 or more copies of the unit, you'd roll past 30 gold. And then if you're at 8 copies and you're missing 1, you might as well just roll till you hit it. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. Assuming that did not happen for you, you need to do what's called a slow roll. So at level 5, during stages 3, 2, and beyond, you just bank up your gold up to 50 gold every single turn to get the maximum interest, and then any gold above that, you just roll down and buy the units in the shop that you want, and rinse and repeat that until you hit the 3-star copy of whatever unit you want. In this case, it could be like Poppy, Blitzcrank, or Lilia. Again, if you're 1 or 2 off, you could consider all-inning and rolling past 50 gold, but it really depends on how much health you have. If you're low health for your stage, then you want to roll. If not, you could wait until stage 4-1. At stage 4-1, you want to roll until you hit your unit and then level up after you hit. And if you didn't hit, you probably lost the game. Unlucky, don't be a reroller. But pretty much whenever you're playing like a 1 cost reroll with the hero augment, you want to hit the unit and then power level right after that. You don't really need to get a secondary carry at that same cost level. For example, we were talking about Lilia and Seraphine before. Typically, without the hero augment, you'd want both of them to be 3-star. But if you have the Lilia hero augment, you don't really need to get Seraphine to 3-star because you could use other carries instead. The reason why is because the game gave you 3 copies of the Lilia when you took the augment, so it's much easier to get Lilia 3-star than it is to get Seraphine 3-star. So identify who your secondary carry is, go to whatever level that needs to be. So if you're going for a 3 cost as a secondary carry, go to level 7. If you're looking for a 4 cost unit, go to level 8. If you're looking for a 5 cost, try to go to level 9, and then roll your gold there for that unit. But that's kind of how those hero augments change a bit about 1 cost reroll. Let's move on into 2 costs. So 2 cost plays the same at the very beginning as 1 cost reroll, where you do not level up and you do not roll during stage 2. And then around level 6, which is typically at stage 3-2, you want to start doing the slow roll. This time you're looking for 2 cost units, so level 6 is going to be optimal. And you just roll down to 50 gold every single turn until you hit the 3-star unit that you want. The one decision point you have to make when doing a 2 cost reroll though is on stage 3-2. Sometimes people need to do what's called stabilizing on stage 3-2. And to do that, you typically want to get a 2-star copy of your 2 cost unit. So if you're going for like Syndra reroll, you should probably have like a 2-star Syndra on stage 3-2, and you should probably roll until you get it. After that, econ back up, then do the slow roll that we talked about before. Again, after you hit whatever unit you're re-rolling for, level up, throw in other synergies for that unit, and call it a day after that. Now let's go into 3 cost reroll. 3 cost reroll is a bit tricky in this set because again, because of charms, it makes high econ strategies a bit more difficult, and 3 cost reroll is a high econ strategy because it costs a lot of gold to reach level 7 and have enough gold to buy all those 3 cost units that you need. So you don't typically do 3 cost reroll as much as you did in the past. Also, for the pool size changes, they really only increased it by 1 unit, so it's not like that game breaking. So 3 cost reroll, I'd say is pretty difficult. I'd probably only do it on like a scuttle puddle or if I have like some insane econ at the start of the game. But again, to do this, you typically want to lose streak during stage 2, so you don't level up, you don't spend any money. And then during level 6 on stage 3-2, you want to stabilize your board after your lose streak from before, hit some 2-star 3 cost units, or just like get some random upgrades on your board so that you don't lose every round in stage 3. And then you econ back up, get to level 7 on stage 4-1, stabilize again if you need to, and then slow roll until you hit your comp. Again, 3 cost reroll, very expensive now, and since the opponents you're facing are probably buying combat charms during stage 3, you're much less stable than you were in the past. So again, only do 3 cost reroll when you have like a ton of econ at the start and perfect loss streak. But kind of the same rules apply to 3 cost rerolling as it does with everything else. You always want to play a comp that has like both a tank and a DPS at a 3 cost, such as mages. You could do like Vex frontline and Veigar backline. They're both 3 cost units, so you could roll at level 7 for both of them. And then you take care of 2 birds with 1 stone. After you get both of them to 3-star, level up, throw in some complementary synergies, and then again, call it a day after that. This is probably one of the faster leveling guides that we've been through from before, so I'm going to hit you with some general tips that I have for leveling and econ management. So generally, there are 3 things you could do every turn. You could either save your gold, roll your gold, or level up. You generally want to save your gold if you want to roll at a specific level. For example, if you're going for a lot of 4 cost units, save as much gold as you can until you reach level 8. Another reason to save gold is if you are healthy, you have no reason to spend gold, you could use your life as a resource. And when I say healthy, I mean like high health compared to everyone else. So if you're like last pick on carousel, if you haven't lost a fight yet, you're probably going to be high health. And lastly, you want to save gold if you already have a strong board. So if you have like a bunch of units upgraded that are relatively strong compared to your opponents, for example, if you're on stage 3-2 and you have a 2-star 3 cost front line, 2-star 2 cost back line with items, you probably don't need to roll that much. So you could just save your gold instead and get stronger at a different time. Those would be like the 3 scenarios where you would want to try to save your gold. You want to spend your gold by either rolling or leveling. If you want to preserve your health, you probably want to roll. If you have a lot of pairs, you also want to roll. And then if you're already at the optimal level to roll for a specific cost of units, such as level 7 for 3 cost units, then you just want to roll at that point instead of spending money on leveling up. Pretty straightforward. Rolling's the best way to get immediate power, and then leveling up is the second way to spend your gold. So leveling up is only really needed if you need to activate a key trait, such as going from like 5 to 7 Eldritch. You need to level up to do that. Or if you need to get a unit at a specific cost. So again, if you're going for 4 cost units, you need to level up to level 8 in order to get a higher chance of hitting them. Of course, after you do level up, you want to have like maybe 30 to 50 gold to roll for those units, depending on how many copies you have already. But it also depends on how much health you have. Lastly, you want to level up if you have like too much extra gold and you don't know what to do with it. You might as well just buy XP because bigger numbers are better than smaller numbers, at least in TFT. But that's going to sum up the leveling guide. Again, charms kind of changed the game a bit. The champion pool sizes kind of changed the game a bit. So it's interesting how the TFT team is able to shuffle up the leveling guide just a little bit every single set. But let me know down below what your favorite leveling pattern is. And also let me know if you think charms are kind of like a good thing or bad thing. Generally, I think they're good because it gives me something to do every turn. I remember in the past, I would AFK a bunch of turns, and I find myself doing a lot less of that recently. But that's going to be it for me today. Hope to see you all next time.